What's up, gamers? This is NGG here with another review video. This time it is for Cafe Enchante. Now this video is going to be more of a book review since that's what this is. This is a visual novel, not a game. It has some CG graphics, not too many. Also has some gameplay, not really gameplay. It's all like reading and dialogue picking, but for the most part this is a book. It is a visual novel. This is in its home. What that is a romance visual novel. So if that's your jam, this is my first one. So this is my first romance visual novel. I'm super excited to talk to you guys about it. Alright, so let's get into everything but story because I'm gonna leave that for last since this is exactly what this is about. Let's get into controls. Now there is a menu that tells you how to control this game. I had problems with the pause menu. There's a fast forward feature, there's a quick save and a quick load, and then a regular save, and a jump to. It doesn't have too. I wish it had more of the jump to, but you couldn't jump to points, which is one of the things I didn't like about the controls. Like I said before, this is a visual novel, so there is no gameplay. A lot of it is just story selection. And what I will tell you is that this is my first kind of visual novel where it's a romance one, so I didn't know that you had to romance every single guy. I thought that you could just pick like listen to them all and then eventually pick who you kind of liked or who you wanted to know more about, and that's how it would work. But that is not how it works. You have to be interested in them from jump to progress every guy's storyline. So what I did my first playthrough was I just went through the story because that's what I thought. You were just gonna pick who you kind of wanted to like at the end, but I didn't know my choices mattered at the beginning. So I don't know how to pronounce any of these names, so I'm gonna butcher them all. So my end person was I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I will show you a picture who my end person was. And yeah, that's who I got first. I'm gonna talk about my favorite endings in order of how from most hated to the best one to me. So when I get to talking about each character individually, I will mention that. So essentially, let's get into story. So the story is you are the cafe owner, and essentially you are the granddaughter of a cafe owner who has recently passed. Like it starts like every farming sim, who has recently passed, and you inherit his cafe, and you can choose whether you want to give it up or not in the beginning or stay at your old job. But essentially, as soon as you decide to keep the cafe and open like the secret back door, these beings from another world show up in your cafe. The reason it's called Cafe Enchante is because it's a fairy tale about things that can never happen in the real world. So you are greeted by a demon king, a fallen angel, a black knight, I think it's a black fairy knight, and a firewolf kind of characters. So all of them have like these humanoid looking characters in there, and so they all come out this door, and they all greet you in like these monstrous forms, and then they change to looking like regular human beings, so you don't understand what's going on. So apparently your grandfather used to own this cafe, and it had a magic door in there that would let beings from other worlds come into his cafe. And since he recently passed, he had locked them all behind their doors or told them to go back to their own worlds at one point for some reason, and never opened the door back up because he knew he was passing. So they didn't know that he had passed. So you have to explain, you know, he died, he left me the cafe and stuff like that to them. And so like in the story, you go through every one of the characters. You are greeted by a fifth character, and this character is an actual human. He runs the GMP, I think are the initials, or GPM, and he is in charge with the government protection, you know, of people with non-humans. So he's tasked with monitoring them. So he hangs out in the cafe a lot too. And like the first chapter of the story, these agents, not him, but these agents try to take over the cafe by force from her, but the customers fight them with no problem. They're super strong non-humans. They're usually not typically violent unless they're provoked. So yeah, and they really like your character, and so they welcome her. They get rid of those guys. Then the other guy from the actual thing comes up and he's like, dang, I'm sorry the higher ups tried to do that to you. I would never do that to you. I'm sorry. And then you get to know his story as well, which is he's in charge of watching them. So, you know, he's tasked with monitoring them, so he's there all the time as well. So essentially you go on getting to know each and every individual character throughout the story mode. You go on, something happens, they take you into their personal worlds, and you get to see what their worlds are. And their worlds are very dangerous to humans because their worlds have different laws of the land. So the way we think about things in our world, like no killing, no nothing, some worlds don't care. Some worlds, because like in the fairy world, they want to see her swim and they throw her off the cliff. They don't think anything of it because most fairies have wings. They're just playing around. They don't think anything malicious, but like in, you know, she almost died if somebody wasn't there to protect her. So things like that. She experiences in other worlds. Situations happen in one of the person's worlds where she becomes very depressed, and to try to cheer her up, they all start getting together and taking her out on dates, essentially. And so let's get into each and every one of the characters. So this is where I'm gonna be spoiler territory. I'm gonna get into each character, their background, and which ones I preferred. So anything from here, this point on, is spoiler territory. If you don't want to hear more and you want to just jump to the ratings, there will be a link below to the ratings where I just rate the game and continue on. All right, so let's go into each one's story, background story, and my, you know, in order of least favorite to most favorite. The first one would be the human's background story. So in his background story, he's a much older gentleman. Your character's in her 20s and he's in his 40s, and so she feels that he treats her like a little child. And you know, eventually she sees, you know, she starts to realize that, you know, he's a man, and like she actually enjoys his company, and like he has his own situation with why he doesn't want her to get super close to the non-humans, because his sister was unfortunately transformed into one and she went batshit crazy, and like he doesn't want the same for you. He doesn't want you to get mixed in with them. He tells you like, hey, I seen human and non-human relations and it never ends well. I haven't seen a situation where it ends well. Sometimes they lose somebody and they don't realize what's going on, and then they start attacking everybody. You know, they don't live the same way we live, so I would like you not to be super close to them. And eventually something happens and he ends up being a non-human, and like now he has to live with himself in the non-human, and he doesn't think that your character should fall in love with him, but she, you know, she tells, you know, she's in love with him at that point. So obviously, you know, she's like, whatever, we're gonna work this out. That's the first story. So he is a human and becomes a non-human, and I'm not gonna say these names, so you'll see pictures of the characters I'm talking about. The second storyline that was my my next favorite, next lowest one, is the fallen angel story. Now this one deals with a fallen angel who is very into visual novels. He's very into otome, so he's very into, I felt like it was a little like fourth wall breaking, third wall breaking, but he's very into otomes and he's reading them. He goes to conventions with your character. He's trying to convince her to read one, and he eventually tells her, hey, how about you read the remake of my first one, the one that got me into all of this. And then he quickly forgets that the character, his name is based on that persona, because when he was a fallen angel, he had no memory of coming, of anything. He had no self-thought. He couldn't do things for himself. So one of the characters gives him a book, because the one thing he wants to know about is love. That's all he keeps saying, love, love, love. So he gives him a visual novel, and he acts like he's been there, like he had been in a catatonic state forever. And as soon as he reads the book in the game, he's processing the information like that's him. He takes on that persona, and now he doesn't want her to read that book because he's like, oh damn, she's gonna find out that I took on this persona. Everything he kind of says, he mimics off that character, and he forgot that he did that. So now he doesn't want her to get to the end of the story where that character reveals his actual name, because that's the name he took on. Eventually you go into the heavenly world where since you're the fallen angel, you are the right hand of God. You are the judgment angel, and your second angel is trying to bring you back by force, by any means necessary. And he brings you back, and they try to reprogram you to your essential, like, you don't do anything unless you're told situation, like his catatonic state. And they're trying to bring him back to that, so he has no memory. His memory is wiped. God is essentially trying to not take over the human world, but he is trying to harvest humans to create more angels, since there are more and more fallen angels as they start becoming, thinking for themselves. So essentially God is the bad guy in this situation, because he's trying to harvest humans to create more spirit energy so the angels can live on. The next storyline has to deal with, and this is the one that's supposed to be the final storyline, so you have to have done all the other storylines to get to this storyline, and like you have to always restart the game to redo this one. And his storyline, he is the Demon King, and so he's always very happy-go-lucky. Everybody thinks he's more like a trickster than a demon king. And eventually you find out that the Demon King is trying to take over the human world. And they're like, hey, why are you sending your people in? He's like, oh, it's not me. I'm not doing that. I'm not telling them to do that. But the people that are coming in trying to take over the world, they're like, yeah, we got orders direct from the Demon Lord himself saying, come take over this territory. He pushes them back in these wormhole type things that push them back into their world. There's a lot of like wormholes and phasers and all that jazz happening. They explain that in the story. Pushes them back. You eventually find out that he is not the real Demon King, because the real Demon King eventually shows up. He's super enamored with you or your character, and he like whisks your character away into his demon world, and the fake Demon King now has to save you. And you as the character are not overly concerned that he lied to you, because he's there to save you. You're like, even if he lied to me about this, I know this man, he wouldn't hurt me, he wouldn't do anything bad to me. So you're not super upset about it. But the problem is that he's supposed to be in his own world, which you thought was a demon world, but his own world by a certain time. So at that time where he thought he was supposed to be back, he was delayed because he had to save your life. And now he turns into his real form, which is not a demon. It's like this weird, I don't know how to say it. It's a weird creature looking thing. And he's not from the demon world. He's from what's called the End of Times world, where there's literally nothing but ash. Ash is the whole world. And you come to find out later that in that world of ash, there is another being there who has been watching this fake Demon King come in and out of the world, and has been so smitten by the female character, he eventually takes away all the power from the fake demon and gives it to himself, makes him look like the fake Demon King, to snatch up your female character and to bring her into his world. And so in that world you cannot survive. Everything like breathing hurts and moving hurts, and everything like dust is like ripping apart your skin, So like he's trying, the fake demon king is trying to get you back into the door, to push you back into your own world. And when you get to the door, the realm host takes away your power, almost essentially kills you and pushes you through the door. He makes you completely human. So then now the non-human fake demon king is human, and you find out one time that he used to be human and was turned that way through to evolution over tens and thousands of years. And now he wants to come back and rescue your female character, but he can't rescue your character because he can no longer live in that world. He eventually goes to the GPM or the GMP to try to figure out a way to get you. They give him a serum and only he can go in and get you. So he's walking aimlessly to try to get you. Eventually your body merges with the other body of the guy that's there, because he himself is the world. So he takes you onto himself while your body is disintegrating. It's enveloping itself into him, onto him, and you yourself lose consciousness. He creates a fake cafe for you so that you could be thinking of your favorite place. And eventually the fake demon king walks into that fake cafe world, and he's talking to your main character, even though you're not visible and he can't see you. He talks as if you're there, and you eventually materialize. But unfortunately for you, you are no longer human because you have merged with the world. You have become the world itself. And eventually, like, what happens essentially is the guy that was controlling the world dies. He gives you the world, and now you have to recreate the world that you live in, and for you to stay there. And you become like this half invisible thing this whole time. And that's how that storyline ends. That's supposed to be the true ending. I wasn't a fan of the true ending. So the next one I want to talk to you about, and this is one that I have mixed feelings. These last two can be in any order. They're both first place for me. I like both their stories. So the last two are in no particular order. What I will do is probably just leave the one I finished first last, because that was the one I finished first, and tell you the one that was before that. So the next one is, the next bachelor we want to talk about is Ignis, and he is essentially the firewolf. And so you go into his world of Bestia, and his world of Bestia is a crude place where the survival of the fittest reigns supreme. They kill each other for sport. The weaker, the stronger monsters kill the weaker monsters all the time. And you come to find out that Ignis himself is the one protecting the weaker beasts. You know, his thing is that his mantra is he never wants to kill a living soul, and so he does everything in his power to protect the beasts that can't protect themselves. And you have a friend there who's super, like, his friend, the guy's friend, is like a tiger, and his friend is essentially like the weakest of the weak in that world. So he latches onto you like a crutch, and he doesn't want you, he wants you to be strong, and he's trying to make everything happen so that you become the strongest, most powerful being in that world. You eventually find out that he is the one manipulating the wormholes, sending the minotaurs after you in the human world, to try to get you to so I'm gonna say that this story itself reminded me so much of Twilight. So what he essentially is trying to get you to do is have this go into like a feeding frenzy with the blood. And so he keeps sending people after you through this wormhole, because if you get into a feeding frenzy, you become this rage beast, this like powerful firewolf, and this is what he's trying to do. And essentially he actually wins on that function. You keep beating people's butts, You eventually spill enough blood where you go into like a feeding frenzy. He even bites the main protagonist, and he bites her, and now like all he wants to do is drink human blood. He becomes this big ass firewolf, high tall. So all the cafe regulars are trying to stop him from going into this human world wormhole and eating all the humans, because he'd rather eat the humans than the beasts, because the taste of human blood is more, and like essentially you have to try to stop him. But for me, this storyline was my favorite because he never wanted to hurt anybody. His mantra was always, I will never kill anybody. He didn't know that in the past he had raged and killed people when he were younger, friend and foe alike. Only the tiger knew that, and he knew that if he would, like, the people that watched his kind of people knew that if he became that thing, that he would change the world. And the guy really just wanted the world to change so that this kill or be killed attitude would stop. So I like it had so many flares to like Twilight for me, so I really like the story. Now the last one I want to talk about is the Headless Knight. Now his story was my first one. He's the one I finished. Now I finished him with the bad ending, and then I had to go back and get the good ending. But he essentially is this fairy knight, and his job is to protect the fairies of the realm and guard the fairy queen. And essentially your female character is like going on to his world every now and again, having tea parties with his queen, chit-chatting, and eventually you guys are on your way back. You and the fallen angel are there one day for a tea party. You're on your way back, where you see him just randomly kill a fairy for no reason. The fairy wasn't doing anything. It was begging for its life, and you're like, this is not him. This is not him at all. And essentially you find out that he is killing these fairies to feed the tree. It uses the power of fairies, and if you don't kill the fairies, the tree will start trying to attack everything and anything to get nourishment. So he is essentially choosing who to kill to nourish the tree, so the tree doesn't go enraged and kill every fairy in the realm, because it has happened before with his previous fairy guard, which was trying to save the fairy queen. And when your previous person tried to save the fairy queen, the tree attacked everybody and almost killed the entire fairy world population. But the tree needs to be satisfied with, you know, nutrition from the fairies. And so eventually what happens is that your character is put in place of the queen, which was, her title is queen, but literally she was just like essentially the sacrifice. Like if the tree ever became enraged, it would just feed off of her soul and it should survive, and then a new queen would be picked. But her brother removed her from the post and put your character in the place, but the tree doesn't want human life, so it's sucking every piece of life from you because it needs fairy magic or power to survive. So it's sucking your character dry, and you're essentially dying while the tree is attacking all the fairies. And you are eventually rescued by the knight, who eventually kills him and his friends kill the tree, and the tree is reborn. And the reason that the tree was attacking fairies is because it originally came from the human world, so it was not used to the fairy realm. And they replanted with seeds from the fairy world so that the new tree that would grow would essentially be the fairy tree. This story was my favorite. Like I said, one of my favorites. It was a toss-up between the last two guys, and because, you know, only because it was the first one I finished, I put it in the first place bracket. So that's essentially this book. My first VN. I love it. I know this last half was spoilery as heck. So let's get into ratings. So this being my first VN, not knowing what to expect, I had an amazing time. It ticks a lot of my boxes. I really don't like to read about stuff that can happen IRL. So essentially it having to do with, you know, fictional things that can never happen in the real world made it such a great experience. I'm gonna give this book a 4.8. because it was super good. I liked the pictures. It made me feel enveloped. The music made me feel enveloped in the story to the point where I was super calm and mellow when the music was mellow and super anxious when the music was heightened. A lot of the feelings as I was reading it with the book. I don't think I ever want to read a book without it being a visual novel again, just because the way I was able to pick and choose my own story, it was super exciting. So thank you guys for watching. Happy gaming. Bye!